dear people of Amazonia, my fellow brave warriors of our liberation movement, my dear people of southern Cameroons, accept liberation greetings from me, Comrade John Akuro. Today is Tuesday, and this Tuesday is the 27th day of May 2025. I'm delighted to be back on this platform for yet another session of conversation, for yet another edition of our engagement, where we do mobilization, where we do sensitization, where we educate ourselves as we continue in our efforts to kick La République du Cameroon out of our land and restore the soul of our nation. I'm delighted that you found time to be part of this broadcast today. And so when you join, share the link. Share the link as much as possible, because the subject matter for discussion today is a very important subject matter. Important because at least the global world is beginning to say it loud, what we have been shouting about, and sometimes some thought that we were perhaps not really sincere. It's true that a lot of people on the international scene who have had to do with the Biya government, one way or the other, are beginning to understand exactly where we are coming from. I've said on this platform 1,001 times to the people of the southern Cameroons that anyone who expected that our liberation movement will be a walk through the park, something definitely should be wrong with you, because we are dealing against the most corrupt government ever known. I mean, the most corrupt ever known, because they corrupt even the corruption watchdog. Does that make some sense? Bribery is the spot of predilection of La République du Cameroon. And so, therefore, I told everyone who had ears to hear that if you want to depend on actors within this liberation struggle who scream in the morning, Ambazonia, scream in the afternoon, Ambazonia, scream in the night, Ambazonia, that if they fall off, it means that the struggle is there. I said you are going to get it completely wrong. La République du Cameroon never solves a problem. Their focus, bribe their way through anything. That is why you notice that La République du Cameroon is the one country in the world where the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund continue to pour money into the place without observing any conditions, not even the standards that they themselves have put in place. No, that's why you understand that the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, they cried foul regarding the mismanagement and absolute embezzlement of hundreds of billions they gave to the République du Cameroon to fight the HIV, to fight the COVID, to fight the COVID virus, the COVID-19. But you expected that they will say until clarity is done on this, they cannot give any more money. And of course, they made that noise, and I told people it was just a waste of time. Because La République du Cameroon is a very mighty client to the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. They know that the money they are giving will not be used for the purpose of which it is intended. And they know so because they themselves retain a good chunk of that money in bribes for the top functionaries of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. That is why, no matter whatever is going on in Cameroon, they'll say, oh, human rights records is the worst. They will continue giving them money. This is not a joke. So therefore, fasten your seatbelt and make sure you don't move as we prepare to get into this very important discussion. I'll pass through some little incident that happened in Bamenda today. Then we will get into the thief of the matter. But especially make sure you share the link. Share the link as much as possible. Share, 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 share. So we get as many people as possible to watch this show. So you will understand why we need to remain steadfast. So you will quickly understand why you see some in our midst to fall and continue to fall. Because La République du Cameroon does not solve problems. They bribe their way through everything. That is their belief. And so, my dear people of Amazonia, this day, Tuesday the 27th of May 2025, a colonel of La République du Cameroon, who was at the same time the colonial legion commander in Bamenda, Colonel or Colonel Zambua, met very brutal death on the roads of Bamenda. As you will see in this picture, that is the colonel, and that is the wreckage that you see on the other side of exactly what happened to him. He ended on the station hill, and the accounts that come in indicate that he succumbed to this very tragic crash on the station hill. I succumbed to that very tragic crash on the station hill, a collision between his car and a truck that was carrying foodstuff. And as that crash occurred, he couldn't survive it. He died at the spot. And his driver and bodyguard who were with him in the car reportedly survived the accident. Usually you say it's a sad thing that someone perishes in such circumstances. But we are at war. We are at war, a war we never invited to ourselves. We are at war, a war they declared on us and have taken advantage of this war to loot our people, to loot our land, to torture our people beyond recognition. And so therefore, it's easy for anyone in this liberation movement to conclude that what has happened is simply karma. Karma, because you will ask yourself how trucks, cars that do not meet the conditions to circulate find themselves circulating. The underdevelopment in our land is a direct result of their activities. That's what they nurture, that's what they protect. So, it is difficult for me to come to sit here to mourn someone who was presiding over a genocide in our land. That is why very quickly I attribute the incident, the accident, to karma. That is Col Zambua.
Je jure et promets de bien et fidèlement remplir mes fonctions.
That's Col Zambua where he lived. And as usual, all of them who are there Bulu Ekanbeti in what they consider a conquered territory, occupied territories. They loot without limits. And they all moved up station. That is the most popular place, and they thought that everyone is so safe there. None of them will go scot-free for the evil that they are perpetrating in our land, for the genocide they are visiting on our people, for the looting and the torture that they are exacting on our people. And this is why I take this opportunity again to remind sons and daughters of Ambazonia, of the southern Cameroons. Listen, this recruitment that you see is not for you. This recruitment that you see, that be whatever, is not for you. If you have ears, listen. If you are smart, be wise. Because don't think that you ever go scot-free for all the horrible things that colonial government of La République du Cameroun is doing to our people. They're only hiring you to go join the ranks of those who will be used to destroy their own people. It's pathetic. Very pathetic. But again, like I said, there will be no peace for the wicked in our land. There will be no peace for the wicked. Because what we are going to discuss is really loaded. I'd like us to take a quick break, 30 seconds, time during which you are sharing the link so that we'll get as many people as possible to be part of this live show. Oh wow, you're welcome back from Saltland. It was a very beautiful moment there. I mean, we have a beautiful culture, beautiful people, both northern and southern zone, wonderful culture. I mean, just everything about our land is wonderful, very wonderful. So after that break, my people, I'd like us to get into the viv of our discussion today. I know you have had the opportunity to watch this short video of former South African President Thabo Mbeki talking about the efforts that they made at the level of the African Union, even at the level of the peer review group, to see how to get La République du Cameroun, how to engage La République du Cameroun for peace talks, for peace negotiations with the people of the southern Cameroons, aka Amazonia. But as you heard him say, the hurdle was, of course, that bribery and corruption that La République du Cameroun is so used to. I said at the start of this broadcast that La République du Cameroun does not believe in solving problems. They are very convinced that they can destroy anything, they can hold everything with money and continue to have their way. So therefore, when I followed this communication, by former South African President Thabo Mbeki, I said, oh wow, it's possible. A lot of people can look at this and just end at this. No, I want to put this communication in context. Within the next few minutes, we are going to see exactly how this whole system is institutionalized. Not only by La République du Cameroon, the whole thing is piloted from France. You want to know? Let me say this again and make it very clear. You know, the French president, Emmanuel Macron, visited Nigeria at the time that there was serious tension and pressure as to whether the leaders of our liberation movement who were captured at Nera Hotel should be sent to Cameroon against the law of non-refoulement, or that's the international principle of non-refoulement, or they should be tried, they need to be tried in Nigeria. The French President Emmanuel Macron visited Nigeria, and the purpose was to meet President Muhammadu Buhari to push for the people to be shipped to Yaoundé. And of course, you know what I'm talking about. A lot of things happened. That is how La République du Cameroun has operated. And in each instance, they are backed by France. I'm going to demonstrate that to you in the next few minutes. We will begin by watching former President Thabo Mbeki, and thereafter, I'll show you the sequencing. Of course, we already know who he's referring to. Let's listen to him.
Challenges in Cameroon that have been going on now for some time, including the violent conflict within Cameroon, kind of civil war. So we've been trying to talk to President Biya about this thing, to say as the African Forum, that's a former head of state of Africa, to talk to President Biya to say we are ready to assist you, to work with you to solve this conflict. And we haven't gone very far because he's not been very keen to be assisted to address these challenges. So I then talked to, as the Africa Forum were doing this thing, I talked to the Commission of the African Union to say to them, but colleagues, what are you doing about this conflict in Cameroon? So one of the commissioners then tells me that we discussed the matter as a commission and decided that one of us should visit Cameroon to engage the president and everybody to see that what can we do as a union. And she said to me that, and indeed our colleague went. And I was sitting here in Addis Ababa watching the news. And in the news, it showed my colleague arriving in Yaoundé and walked down a red carpet. And she says, you know, President, when I saw my colleague walking down that red carpet, I knew that the mission had failed. So I say, no, this is a puzzling statement to make. He says, it's because the way they arranged that reception was to drive the notion into the head of my colleague that you are a very important person. So you are received with great grandeur. So in the end, it's the visit itself which becomes the objective, not its outcome. So I knew that my colleague would be so happy that he was received so well, and the red carpet and the champagne, this and that and the other. The mission would die. It's a crude reflection of the death of the Pan-Africanist objective. You can't sit there as a full-time functionary of the African Union and you go there to solve a very serious conflict among the Cameroonian people, but you don't carry it out because all that happened, that satisfies you, is that I was given all the necessary protocol and the due and so on. So now I'm a big person. it means there's something that has disappeared in terms of your consciousness and so on. But I'm saying that, you see, it challenges in Cameroon that they've been going.
So you heard former President Thabo Mbeki very well. What former President Thabo Mbeki is establishing here, he is a statesman. And so he is talking like a diplomat. That's why he will talk a bit in riddles. Because what he tells you, that, when they saw red carpet and all of this, they say, now the focus will be on the red carpet and all of that, on the fact that it was honored, it was well received. But what he's not saying is that what he doesn't really want to say so plainly is that when Musa Faki Muhammad got to Cameroon, he was fed thoroughly. Of course, like people to Cameroon will give him more than enough money and give him a version that he will now use. Don't forget that the same Musa Faki is the one who sent reports to the United Nations at the time when serious tensions were going on to give the impression that the government of Cameroon was seriously engaged and doing serious things to initiate internal dialogue to resolve this conflict. Musa Faki Muhammad did that. Of course, the report was received. That report was public. What Mr. Thabo Mbeki is also not saying, but puts it in a way that if you understand diplomatic language, you will hear very plainly is that he went there and became self-serving and forgot the noble mission for which he was sent. It's true that it's a bit easy to simply see it from that perspective, just that he went there and was given his bribe. Of course, he was given bribe and given handsomely, and there is a lot of evidence to that. Because when I'm talking, we're talking about Musa Faki Muhammad. This is evidence because this is the person that we are talking about here. This is Musa Faki that you see here. That was the arrival in Yaoundé for that particular visit, where they say the African Union Commission chairperson, of course, he was received at the airport. The red carpet started right at the airport. He was received at the airport by La République du Cameroon's Prime Minister Joseph John Bouteh. And when he left from there, he went. Biya was on hand to receive him. Biya knows that this time Biya often has the habit of snubbing people. Sometimes was not even too available, but he was on hand to receive him because it was so important to receive him. Because of course he had to be given enough money, given resources, and then fed a narrative, and then he will become now the author of that narrative on the international scene. And so he went to Yaoundé, dispatched to go engage with Mr. Paul Biya to talk to him about the need to engage with the people of the southern Cameroons for a peaceful resolution of the ongoing genocidal conflict. But when he got to Cameroon, the mission became, when he was leaving Cameroon, that he went with the mission from the African Union Commission. But he returned from there with La République du Cameroon's own mission, which means as soon as he got to Yaoundé, what took him there died. And he now had to become ambassador for a new mission from La République du Cameroon. And that mission was to go out there and say how Mr. Paul Biya is an apostle of peace. He's a prince of peace. He has done so much, a lot already, to help abate the situation in the southern Cameroons. But the people of the southern Cameroons are the ones who are ungrateful, who don't want to recognize that anything is being done, who don't want to yield to the efforts, to the multiple efforts that are being made. That is why at the end of his visit, Mr. Paul Biya, of course, published this. He said today, that's July 13, 2018, said, today it was my great honor to welcome His Excellency Musa Faki Muhammad chairperson of the African Union Commission to the Unity Palace. But he didn't tell you what he came for. He didn't say, like he would say traditionally, what I did, oh, we discussed this, we discussed that, we discussed that. Why? Because the purpose of Mr. Musa Faki's visit was derailed. As soon as he got to Yaoundé, like President Thabo Mbeki is saying, this is what happened. So that is the reception, as you can see. I will let you have some fun, watch exactly how it unfolded. So you grow to understand exactly why there was nothing that Musa Faki could have done. That Musa Faki absolutely, even before he went, I want to say this because I'm going to demonstrate that much later. Because by the time the African Union Commission dispatches him to Yaoundé, the French government, of course, will call Musa Faki. Musa Faki will have a talk with the Élysée and the Quai d'Orsay on exactly how his mission to Yaoundé has to be conducted. The outcome is discussed with him even before he meets Mr. Paul Biya. And when he meets Mr. Paul Biya, it's simply to pick up from where he ended in discussions with the Quai d'Orsay and the Élysée in France. So this is exactly what happened. I'll let it flow again a little. So you see, Cameroon simply made this a state visit. I mean, a state visit where you see Musa Faki is treated there. I mean, more. He even has a kind of reception that some heads of state have not been privileged to have. And the reason is simple. They need to disorganize Mr. Musa Faki when he arrives. That if what he got from the Élysée and the Quai d'Orsay as mission do not sync properly, when we get to Yaoundé, every arrangement has to be made to completely destabilize him. You can see. Look at what he is receiving. That is the public and official bribe that you see. Of course, the envelopes and every other entitlement that he will be given will not be presented on camera. But that is the one that you see. And Paul Biya has systematically done this with any international diplomat that gets there. We saw how he did that with the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, who went there and was supposed, instructed by the Commonwealth of Nations, the organization, to make sure she will get to Biya, she will get to Bamenda, she will get to the scene where the atrocities were being committed. They limited her in Douala. When they took her down to Biya, it was for her to meet specific people, carefully arranged, and the narrative that was already prepared for them to dish out to her. And that's the version she took along. So you look at Faki. He is in all the reverence you can imagine. And you expect this man seated here to deliver to Mr. Paul Biya the message that I have come to tell you, really you have to engage in peace. The seriousness of the mission disappeared because now it became a state visit full of champagne, full of grandeur, full of everything, as you can see here. So, at the end of the day, Musa Faki folded his tail, left from there, excited, like President Thabo Mbeki said. He was treated like a god. He was given every honor you can see, dose of champagne and all of that. But this is not supposed to be part of this kind of mission. We are going to talk to someone about serious issues. So the red carpet I'm talking about here is not just the carpet The color of the carpet on which he was moving is everything that you see going on here. And that is how, at the end of the day, Musa Faki will leave Yaoundé with nothing to show for it. And just so you know, like I said, France has always made sure, since the start of this conflict in the southern Cameroons, France has worked so hard, openly, with French-speaking countries of the African Union to make sure that the chairman of the African Union Commission will always be a citizen from a former French colony. Because that way, they are able to take control of that organ and they are able to direct the narrative of that organ. And that's exactly what's been happening. 1 year later, when Musa Faki returns to Yaoundé in the company of the Secretary General of the Commonwealth of Nations. You see her there? The fair lady who has the microphone before her, Baroness Scotland. You see? And then the Secretary General of the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie. And then, of course, Musa Faki Mahamat again. When they come this time, you see, they tell, oh, the pressure was mounting, the pressure was serious. But these are all jokers. All jokers. Of course, you see the red carpet is behind them, it will always be there. These were all jokers. Because, of course, the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie, that's already France. Musa Faki Mahamat, still France. This woman, Patricia, Scotland, of the Secretary General of the Commonwealth of Nations, oh no, still call it France. Because the French and the British have continually promoted a narrative which is not supposed to be the correct narrative. Promoted a narrative that the government of Cameroon is doing a lot, and at the same time, they keep pushing the looting. We know that it is during this conflict that the British signed handsome oil deals with Paul Biya of La République du Cameroun on resources that are found on southern Cameroon's territory. And so therefore, all three, because the Commonwealth of Nations has always talked about core values. Don't forget, I was the Secretary General of the Cameroon Commonwealth Journalists Association, CJ at the time. I became a member of the International Executive Committee of the Commonwealth Journalists Association, CJA. I was elected into that bureau in London in April of 2016. And the lady I just presented to you had just become Secretary General of the Commonwealth. And so we even had a session with her where she was promising all the wonderful things and all the unimaginable reforms that will be brought into the Commonwealth to make it a more functional and more proactive organization. But in the face of what is happening in Cameroon, between La République du Cameroon and the people of the southern Cameroons, she lost her claws. The Commonwealth of Nations no longer talks about its core values. And if you're talking about its core values, which mean the respect of human rights, the respect of this, they have expelled nations like Zimbabwe where there's no genocide ongoing. But Paul Biya is pampered for one simple reason. This is a government that is extremely specialized in bribery and corruption at all levels of life. I mean, at all levels of life. You see that even civil servants of that country will sing Mr. Biya's praises because every civil servant at every level is provided with a rare opportunity where they can make illicit money. That's bribery. They close you up when they can make illicit money. And so therefore, when these three international civil servants found themselves there, look at what happened. Of course, the lady This was the first time she went back with this beautiful gift. That's in gold. Plus the envelope that will follow. So her comments to the press, oh no, were so much so that no, the government of Cameroon is putting every effort and they are encouraging those efforts, and they were going to be working with them to see that they pursue the efforts that they're already putting in place to resolve the crisis, and they think that it is an internal problem that has to be resolved between the people internally. That is what this lady said when she left. Of course, you can see why. Now, the Secretary General of the International Organization of La Francophonie, of course, this was her own trophy. You can see, it was her own trophy. And so, they will parrot the same thing all over the place. And so the excitement that people have to say, oh no, these people are going there, they are ramming up pressure, all of that is engineered by France as a make-believe, because the French did not and do not want any other member of the international community to become so serious about forcing La République du Cameroun to go to an internationally mediated settlement of the ongoing genocide in the southern Cameroons. For the simple reason that both the French government and La République du Cameroun know that La République du Cameroun has no legal claim, has nothing to justify its presence on the territory of the southern Cameroons, shy of a so-called plebiscite of February 11, 1961, that ought to have ended, that ought to have been materialized with the signing of a treaty of union. A union treaty was never signed. And so the French know that following international law, especially a treaty to which La République du Cameroun is a party, when they signed to the Uti Possidetis Juris Treaty of the Organization of African Unity, an organization that got now morphed into the African Union. Every country's boundaries were frozen at independence, and La République du Cameroun achieved its independence on the 1st of January 1960, and the southern Cameroon was not part of its territory. Absent a treaty of union, or called a union treaty, La République du Cameroon's presence in the southern Cameroons is tantamount to territorial expansion, which is ruled illegal by international law. So therefore, the French are not oblivious of this, and that's why they will do everything to foster this international corruption. You see here, this is the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres. Don't forget, and don't ever forget, I have a slot on this platform. There's a video on this platform in 2019. No, that was in 2018. When I reported from a leaked document from the presidency of La République du Cameroun, that after a visit to the United States, to New York, by Joseph John Gov't, at the time he wasn't prime minister, and of course I guess that is why he was rewarded with the position of prime minister. Joseph John Gov't, with Professor Nkot of the prime minister's office, they came, met Antonio Guterres, who promised them that he was going to use his good offices to help change the narrative for La République du Cameroun. And Antonio Guterres at the time said that, oh, he knew how these things happen. People will provoke things to happen, and then they will take the consequence of that provocation and cry foul everywhere on the international scene to soil the image of the country, and promised he was going to use his good offices to vouch for the government of La République du Cameroun, to stand in the way of any serious business being done internationally. I reported this, and I will look for the link to that video and share it on the comment section when this live broadcast is over, so you can have the opportunity to go back and listen and understand And so when Antonio Guterres finally passed through Cameroon, that was through Yaoundé, that was after that I reported that incident, and of course I had the document handy. Of course, this is the trophy he received, and certainly with chunks of money. That is how it has always been. And that is why I've told the people of the southern Cameroons to know that we are not just up against any kind of enemy. We are up against an enemy who excels in bribery and corruption. They are not corrupting only people on the international scene. They are corrupting a lot of people within our liberation movement. But unfortunately for them, they will not be able to corrupt everyone. There are always going to be people who will be incorruptible, who will continue to stand for what we believe in. And that is why I'm trying by this to encourage each and everyone to remain very committed to this liberation movement. These stupid approaches have not yielded the expected result. The people who come, claim their gifts, this Musa Faki, claim their expensive gifts, claim their golden gifts, claim their envelopes and everything and go. But the conflict will continue because Mr. Paul Biya's pipe dream that he would defeat the people of the southern Cameroons at war will never come to pass. And because it will never come to pass, it is only a matter of time. As former U.S. Undersecretary at the Department of State in charge of the Bureau of African Affairs, Tipo Nagi says, he said, the people of the southern Cameroons, the people of Ambazonia, will get exactly what they want. Independence. And he said, it's just a matter of time. And so, that is why I continue to tell our people, we can shorten the time by continuing to contribute generously to push this liberation movement forward, by continuing to stay mobilized, by continuing to participate at every single demonstration that is called, by continuing to support our foot soldiers on ground zero, by continuing to give our people the moral support they deserve on ground zero as they continue to obey the ghost towns, as they continue to show the civilian resistance, making nonsense of the narrative of La République du Cameroun that the people of the southern Cameroons are happy to be second-class citizens, are happy to be slaves, that they are only being derailed by a bunch of misguided individuals pushed in the diaspora. We need to support our people because by continually observing those ghost towns every Monday and during special occasions, they continually are making nonsense of this stupid narrative being promoted by La République du Cameroun and their apparatchiks on the international scene and those that they have bought within the southern Cameroons. We have to learn this and we have to stand for it. I know, like I talked about France, when Musa Faki was passing the torch in February 2025, France invested itself seriously to ensure that the next chairman of the African Union Commission taking over from Musa Faki would be again from a French-speaking country. And of course, it came to pass. They don't sleep on their laurels because the French are clear. If they lose the southern Cameroons, they are likely to lose La République du Cameroun, and that would be disastrous because they have already lost a number of countries in Africa. They have already lost Algeria, not Algeria, Niger. They have already lost Mali. They have long lost Guinea. They have also lost Burkina Faso. They are virtually losing or have already lost Senegal. And they know that the tensions in Cote d'Ivoire mean that someday they could find themselves confronted with an unacceptable situation in Cote d'Ivoire. And because all of these conflicts are all of those places in French-speaking countries, they need to make sure they are continually in control of the African Union. Because he who controls the African Union Commission inadvertently is controlling the African Union. The chairman of the African Union is usually ceremonial. These are the people. So you see, this gentleman from Djibouti, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, is the next chairman of the African Union Commission. Djibouti was about the last French colony in Africa to achieve independence. And so, he will be there to protect French interests, to make sure the African Union is used, but to protect the French interests in Africa, not to work for Africans. This is what it is. If you're doubting Djibouti, you can see there, France's last colony. It gained independence, I think it's 1977 or something. Yeah, 1977. And so France doesn't joke with that. So when I listened, therefore, to President Thabo Mbeki, I said it is important for our people to understand it is not just an isolated situation. Even with this gentleman called Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, nothing's going to change. Moussa Faki was Minister of Foreign Affairs in Chad and was also Prime Minister of Chad. And of course, we know France's attachment with Chad. And therefore, he had one objective. Because France propped him up there to promote French interest. That is going to be the same thing with Mahmoud Ali Yusuf. So therefore, my people of the Southern Cameroons, there is nothing to ever expect from the African Union. Nothing. We have to grab La République du Cameroon continually on the throat until it gets to that point where it is La République du Cameroon begging for peace to happen, begging for peace talks to hold. That is when you will have peace talks. But if you are counting that some external influence, unless it's some country like the United States, like President Donald J. Trump, in his first term, cut Cameroon off AGOA, the African Growth and Opportunity Act. Oh, it was really painful. You need many more such acts from countries like the United States that definitely believe in freedom, in the freedom of the people to decide who they want to be with, how they want to run their society, and to run their own affairs. You will recall that the United States of America is that rare country that way back in 1959, right all the way to 1961, kept insisting that it made sense for the people of the Southern Cameroons to be allowed to stand on their own. They were functionally against any form of union between the Southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroun. That's why Zablonski did not mince words when he said, on behalf of the United States of America, that he was congratulating the people of the Southern Cameroons after the vote of April 21, 1961, on achieving independence, and insisted that forcing the people who have just achieved their independence to get into an unholy union with La République du Cameroun, with different cultures, people are different and all of those things, was going to lead to disaster, the disaster we are seeing today. That is the only way external influence can work. Otherwise, we have to keep fighting. We do what Eritrea did to mighty Ethiopia, until Ethiopia had to get to that place where they themselves asked for peace talks. We have to work hard and continue to do until we get to that place where we do what East Timor, small East Timor, that's less than 2 million people today, did to mighty Indonesia that had over 250 million people at the time. Right to the point where the president of Indonesia had to call the Secretary General of the United Nations and say, please come and go organize a referendum there. We have to do what the people of South Sudan did until the government of Sudan had to understand that it would appear the only way we get peace is holding internationally mediated peace talks. La République du Cameroon will only go to a negotiations table when we have succeeded in making life impossible for them. We are on course. We are doing it. Don't think they will continue to get this money that they are getting from the international community all the time. They are going to blow up. And once they do, they will be thoroughly weakened. And once they're thoroughly weakened, we will get to where we want to get to. This is why we have to stay focused. This is why we have to stay firm. Let's end up with this clip that a lot of people have already watched and commented to say bribery and corruption is the favorite spot of the La République du Cameroon government. That's why Atanganji could not hesitate to take it even right to a holy place like Rome. It's hard to tell exactly what Atanga Ponji told the Pope all this while before finally you see he mumbled. First he wanted to send the hand, he hesitated. Think he needed to tell him first, the president of La République du Cameroon, he believes so much in you, he does this. In fact, he even wanted to come visit Cameroon, he will this, he will that. And then in the end say, you know, we Africans, when we go to place, they always send, oh, some little color not. So you see, boom, he sent me to bring it to you, and then the Pope calmly, politely, simply places a finger on it and tells that, okay, you want it blessed, and waves the hand. They are no longer ashamed. This is caught on camera. That's what they are. They are not ashamed. We know this. That means we know what we're up against. And because we know exactly what we're up against, that is a plus. Because we know exactly what we have to do. So my dear people of Ambazonia, I took the pains to put this together so that we put this communication of former South African President Thabo Mbeki in context, that you better understand how it fits into that narrative that we as a people have our destiny in our own hands. Anybody sent to La République du Cameroon for any mission, for anything whatsoever, will come back with a golden statue and envelopes. And there is nothing you should expect from that. The only time something will come out of it when La République du Cameroon will begin now to do the reverse. Send delegations to this country to plead with them, please come and mediate peace talks between us and the people of the Southern Cameroons. That is when we would have attained our objective. That is when we will be able to get La République du Cameroon out of our territory. It's not like it's impossible. No, there is a way. Just that we need to do the needful, and we will get to it. If you like this broadcast, make sure you share the link and share as much as possible. But most importantly, make sure you contribute in helping us continue to push our liberation movement forward. Thank you, everybody. It was my pleasure sharing with you.